ऑप्शनल ओरिएंटेशन है ना। देखो, फर्स्ट थिंग्स तो 4 faculties will teach you this. Ancient will be taught by me. My name is Praveen Dikshit. And medieval history will be taught by Rohan sir. Modern history will be taught by Tariq sir, and world history will be taught by Chandrabhan sir. It was done so that teachers could focus largely on their own parts. Second thing, which just want to convey, generally students see history from the point of view of GS. Let me tell you, GS is 5 times more difficult than optional of history. 5 times more difficult. GS history is a bit random. Jaise some of you must have heard the idea of GS. Jaise in GS they ask where you have seen lion and bull on Indian art forms. Or in GS they ask you the questions like, describe medieval society on the basis of medieval sculpture. The student get threatened by these questions. Abhi I'll tell you all that. Wait, students get threatened by these questions. Students think where you have seen, any guess where you have seen lion or bull on Indian art forms? Ashokan emblem. Then Indus Valley civilization, humped bull, ठीक है. Or that is Ashokan pillar only. It's a bit difficult because it is based on the memory. So 4th avatar of Vishnu is Narsingh avatar. The vehicle of goddess Durga is lion. Then if you have seen, Buddha is depicted as lion. Buddha is lion. That's why Sarnath has lion. Jainism, Mahavir Jain is lion. So they are depicted by lion. So these are lion. And bull, where you have seen bull. Bull. Nandi. Indus Valley civilization. Coins of Kushans. Jallikattu you must have heard. So now Jallikattu. So this is GS style question. Optional style question is, analyze the importance of traders in Buddhism. You must have heard Buddhism. In Buddhism, traders played an important role. Meaning is, in optional you don't need a lot of examples from history. Your concept should be clear. And for concept there is a story. For example, optional style question of Bollywood is, analyze the importance of direction in movie making. You need not to remember all the movies. Just your concept should be clear, how direction is important. Or they ask you what is the importance of marketing in making a movie success. GS style question of Bollywood. In one Shah Rukh Khan movie, what color shirt villain is wearing? But how difficult it is. And the students are generally threatened by it. And that's why if you have asked to any old student or not, whatever will be taught in your notes is guaranteed to be asked in exam in optional, not in GS. GS to could be very random. In optional, whatever will be taught, whatever will be in your notebook, that has guarantee to be asked. For last 5 years I am teaching, and never ever it happened that a question came beyond that. It's not about self-praise. It is about the nature of the optional subject. The nature of optional subject is based on themes. Nature of optional subject is based on understanding. And that's why if you have made the understanding, you will answer the question. If you do not have the understanding, no matter what, you will not answer the question. Just for example, if I tell you, you must have seen, if you blame communalism on BJP government, people will accept it. If you blame corruption on Congress government, people will accept it. Ab why is this reason? Iska kya reason? So if your concept is clear about Indian politics and nature of these parties, you will understand what's the reason of this. For this, you do not need a lot of examples. For this, your clarity should be much more higher. Just for example, if I ask you, Indian-Pakistan political tensions generally get reflected in the religious tensions also. Whereas India-America tensions never get reflected in the religion. India-Pakistan conflict is generally seen as Hindu-Muslim conflict. India-America conflict is never seen as Hindu-Christian conflict. What's the reason behind this? Whatever is the reason. This is a conceptual question. I am not asking you enlist all the political leaders of BJP, Congress, or all the events of Pakistan and India. Concept of the optional is the must. And that's why you will see the conceptual clarity is something which optional focus on. Optional wants the concept clarity from you. समझ आ गई बात? First thing. Second thing, sources are limited, which I'll tell you. What portion I teach and other teachers also teach. Notes are that source. Some of the books, anyone of you have heard Upinder Singh? Suna Upinder Singh. Then you must have heard about B.L. Grover. Then Bipin Chandra's struggle for independence and Norman Louis. Just read the notes. The reason is notes will be much more elaborate. And if you have to read the books, what is the purpose of teacher? So questions will be asked from there. So it's sort of guarantee. One thing which students are generally worried about is mapping. Anyone heard history optional have mapping? So students generally ask, sir, how to answer this mapping? So let me tell you some mapping. Pehle mapping sun le. And let me show you how you know mapping. If this is the map of India, please tell me an IPL team. Bangalore नहीं, RCB. तो RCB, ठीक है? Royal Challenger. Thanks. Then, if I ask you, center of footwear making. Kolhapur. Then I ask you, city famous for peda. Agra is not famous for peda. Agra is famous for petha. Peda is famous in Mathura. Good. Then a city, I also have to search. A city famous for a politician who generally switch the sides. Bihar nahi, city, Patna. Ab feel one thing. None of my cities are exact. Neither Mathura is exactly here, nor Bangalore is exactly here, nor Kolhapur, though I don't even have clear idea where it is in Maharashtra. Neither Patna is here. But all of your answers are correct. Why so? Why your answers are correct? Because the question is not about mapping. The question is about your knowledge of India. Mapping is never poor. Many students say, sir, we are not confident in mapping. No, you are not confident in history. You don't know subject. If you know the subject, just say for example, tell me a site famous for a medieval monument, a marble monument of medieval age, Agra. Do you think Agra is exactly at the dot? No, Agra is not exactly at the dot. But because you are so confident in Taj Mahal, you understood what I want to ask. Just say for example, famous city of movies, Mumbai. So always remember, mapping is not about the exact markings. Mapping is about the idea from the history. Just which king transferred the capital from Delhi to this city? What is this city? Daulatabad. You know the history, you don't worry where is Daulatabad. Daulatabad yahan hai bhi nahi. Daulatabad is bit north. Yahan pe Daulatabad. I have made it 200 kilometers away. But still you got the answer. The reason is you are not interested in exact mapping. No one can exactly map anything. No one can exactly map anything. Do you think India take curves like this from here only? But you understood it is map of India. Neither the curves of Gujarat may be like this. It may not be appropriate maps. So don't worry about mapping. Generally, I don't boast about myself. I should be a humble person. But out of 20, 18 to 19 maps is guaranteed. One generally they ask. Just last year they asked a temple which is named on son and mother. A difficult question. That's a difficult question in mapping. That's really a difficult question. Otherwise, you will see generally questions are asked Paleolithic site, Mesolithic site, famous battle site. Please tell me a famous battle site. Panipat. Problem is you only know mainly Panipat. It can be Kurukshetra war also. It can be Battle of Karnal also. It can be battles of Tarain also. But they are so near, all of them are right. No one is going to ask you because they are 50 kilometers away. In mapping, there is no difference between Gurgaon and Noida. If in map of India I show you Gurgaon and Noida, they are exactly same. So first thing, the main elephant in the room for history optional is this mapping, which generally covers 50 marks. But generally I take the mapping till the time students themselves do not get fed up of. Yes, if you ask the last batches, so we have taken 12 to 15 classes of mapping. All the mapping will be conveyed, and I personally take that mapping part. And it is covering ancient also and a lot of medieval mapping. So first is mapping. Second thing is your questions, your content, your subject. So main thing about subject is what I generally convey. If you know a subject, have the practice. Do only one thing, whatever I teach. Just remember that you should be able to generate points. Don't worry about all this theory and all this rocket science. Just develop the ability to generate the points from the subject. Just say, for example, if question is asked, after 1947, India changed the British system of administration or continued with it? Continued with it. How you know they continued? नहीं वो तो ठीक है. What are the features of continuation? IPC ठीक है. Then जो भी हो, CRPC, IPC, Indian Penal Code. Then bureaucracy. वो that administration. So obviously you will walk on foot also, only train only. Then judiciary. Same. Legislature bicameral. So this is continuity. But you also have to write changes. Now tell me the changes. After 1947, before 1947, changes. Restricted suffrage. Everyone was not given right to vote. Here it is universal. Who made the laws before 1947? British Parliament. Who made laws after 1947? Indian Parliament. Who was the head of the state? British King. Now, the President of India. Just telling you, remember to pick out these points. Every question will be answered by you. Theory is taught, and these differences. Every question should have both the views for you. Both the views. British in India were good or bad? Good also. Yes. The aim of the optional and difference between optional and GS is that your brain should be able to generate point on both the sides. In debate, you have to speak for the motion also, against the motion also. And that is the main difference between optional and GS. In optional, generally one-sided view. I can give you some example, you will not understand. Anyone heard Ashok? There was a king called Ashok. He had some inscriptions in which he talks about Dhamm. Dhamm samajhte ho? Dhamm. His Dhamm was religion of Buddhism or morality of person? Morality. He was talking about morality. So please tell me, when he sent his daughter Sanghamitra to Sri Lanka as Dhamm Pracharak, to spread morality or Buddhism? Buddhism. He say, I am doing Dhamm Yatra. Dhamm Yatra means moral yatra or pilgrimage centers of Buddhism? Pilgrimage centers. So it doesn't mean your simple morality answer is right. Your job is to think both the ways. Morality also, Buddhism also. So only 2-3 things are required. Mapping, I'll tell. Then there is this. Both the sides you have to think, and you have to generate the points. And rest assured, whatever will be taught, in optional that will be asked in exam. In GS, I never give such a guarantee. Some of you are looking like GS students. So you will see in GS never ever such discussion. In GS, it is really random. GS paper is made by some enthusiast bureaucrat who thinks he knows history, and he asks whatever wherever he visit. Optional paper is made by the scholars of history. It is exactly like college paper, repetitive also, and predictable also, and conceptual also. So one thing which I have felt that students are intimidated by history as a subject because they know history by GS. And that's why you will see whenever a student bring me a GS paper, I myself get nervous. God knows what is question asked. Pata nahi kya pooch de. Sometimes they ask this term is mentioned in which book. How do we know which term is mentioned in which book? But when a student bring an optional question, some of you must have seen I check the optional answers after the class. They generally after class optional answers a student bring every day. So I check it. So I never feel nervous in that. I am so sure that when an optional question will be asked, I will be able to answer, and I am sure the students also are able to answer. Some of you must have visited that place where he visited, or some of you. So there every day answers are checked. Because my sole agenda or my sole purpose to convey to you is, this is not the exam of talking. If this would have been the exam of talking, surely I would have cleared it. Because I can talk better. But this is the exam of answer writing. And I used to write very absurd answers. If ever I tell you how I write answers, so you will not feel very good about it. Story form, the way I am speaking to you. This is not required. Later I understood answer should be the crispness of the points. If you are talking to a man of higher authority, you need to hit bullet into the head within seconds. You don't have time to make up a story. Say, for example, if an interviewer asked, what do you think are your strengths? So you have 30 seconds to tell your strength. You can't make up a story. Listen, I am a good man. First you should know about me. He is not interested. A man of smaller authority, lower authority, I can talk to a student like this, but I can't write answer like this. So answer writing is the must. Every day, all of you will write some answers, question I'll give, and from previous year questions. At least spend 1 hour every day on answer writing. Samajh aayi na baat? Answer writing. That is the sole purpose of it. And I'll tell you how to write the answer. So one is mapping, another is answer writing, and then is bullet points. Don't worry about any of the things. Just you have to do one thing. Have some interest in the subject. That's very important. The reason is the way it will be taught, you will develop the interest. Cumbersome books not required. Don't get threatened by the books. Because if you have to read the books, what is the purpose of teachers? Especially it's not a college exam. The teacher is giving you a book list and you have to read it. So just remember, and question paper is about 500 marks, which sir will discuss. Other teachers will discuss all this, what is the marks of the paper and what is that. My sole point to convey student is there is a method to read the optional, and that method is much simpler than GS subject. Dekhna, sir aa gaya kya ek baar? Aur dusra, because I don't have much interest in discussing about how many marks are asked, or 500 marks paper, I hope you are aware. 250 marks into 2. I know this all, ancient, medieval, modern and word. हाँ जी. ठीक है, तो abolition of titles. ठीक है. So this is how. Always remember, mapping and this answer writing are the two things. Just I give this example. Studying is doing gym, and answer writing is fighting on road. You should be able to do what? Gym or road? Both. You have to become a heavyweight boxer, है ना? तो जिम भी ऐसा थोड़ी कि रोड पे दुबले पतले जाके पिट के आगे चले आए. So reading also and answer writing also. Practice is something where you have to be 100% confident. The moment I throw a question, you should be able to generate the points. Ashok was a moral king or impractical king? Both. Every question's answer is both. Mahatma Gandhi. Arey ruko yaar. Question is asked, if there would have been no Gandhi, what would have been the nature of Indian independence? Batao bhai. Without Mahatma Gandhi, what would have been the nature of Indian independence? Quicker and violent. Or by anyone online if wants to. Quicker and violent. Anyone? If there would have been no Mahatma Gandhi na hote, to what would have been the independence? पहले तो ये बताएं, आर यू एस्ट्रोलॉजर टू नो दिस? तो आया ही, दिस क्वेश्चन इज आस्क्ड. आई एम नॉट मेकिंग दिस अप, इट इज आस्क्ड. पूछा गया है, झूठ थोड़ी बोल रहा हूं. What could be the answer? Answer is the views. Views. More views you have, that's called historiography. Teachers will take care of the views. You are not there to predict anyone. You are not astrologer. The more views you have, so always answer of every question is both. Sabka both hai. British were good also, bad also. Ashok was moral also, immoral also. Mahatma Gandhi did something good also, bad also. Whenever a question is asked, views. This views is told to student in a great name, which create the fear among them. Historiography. थोड़ा word बड़ा है तो simple ways views. Present government is good or bad? But both. And don't take the blame. According to this channel, good. According to that channel, bad. ठीक है ना? तो ठीक है सर, अब आप आगे.
Good afternoon to all. I am Mohammad Tariq, and I am here to take modern Indian history classes for those who are appearing in 2026 or 2027, right? So you all have hopefully decided or about to decide your optional paper. Now is it audible? Audible? Good. So as my colleague Praveen told something about maps and about fear of history, I will talk about two different things which you should keep in your mind in your journey. The first thing which is very important in taking any optional, now since many of you have decided or about to decide to take history as an optional, that how this topic is advantages. So what are the advantages while taking history as one of your optional papers, right? So over the years, UPSC has evolved since 1926, right? And since civil service examination is premium examination, at least in the public eyes, so what I know as a student of history, that there are certain subjects whose graph goes ups and downs in different phases. Like I remember between 2000 to 2010, public administration was most favorite optional. Right now, a lot of students think political science, maybe sociology, the second one, but history has maintained a consistency throughout. It's almost like Rahul Dravid, that there are Tendulkars and there are other players, but Rahul Dravid, as you know, called as the wall, right? That consistency, this subject in UPSC records of marks, selections. Many of my own students, including Shruti Sharma and Faz and others, got 296 plus, 300 plus. Now, I will talk to you also what they did and what they you can do to score 280 plus in our classes. Certainly, not all possible today. So the advantage number one is that you can score 280 plus with same amount of work which you are going to do in other subjects. Now there are certain beliefs which is correct. There are certain myths which you have to remove. And I hope you understand the difference between belief and myth. So our belief about history is that it is as scoring as any other subject, provided you do this justice with the question. Now, we will discuss in our classes that what teachers are looking in your answers. Like, facts are, of course, important in every subject. You can't write economics without data. You can't write geography without factual details of Himalayas, rivers. You can't write physics without basic principles of physics. So facts in history is as important as in other subjects. But apart from facts, interpretation of facts becomes very crucial. And this is where our teachers would help you, all four of us, that how French Revolution is interpreted differently by different people. Why for some people it was a great event, may not be the same one. Why partition of India is one of the great event. Plassey is a great event in modern Indian history, and questions would keep coming. That is because historians keep interpreting differently. It is their interpretation which makes someone as hero, someone as villain. So today, Nehru is almost a villain. Patel has become larger than life. Am I right? Though it is not made by historian, it may be made by politicians and media also. But Hitler was once hero in Germany. But post Second World War, he became villain. Now, if you read how Europeans have evolved Indian history and world history between 1800 to 1950, almost 1,50,000 researches were made in Oxford, Cambridge, Princeton universities, mostly to dehumanize and to make Asians, Africans as inferior breed, which is called Orientalism in a scholar language, right? Now, they prove through researches that you, the Asians, you, the Africans, you, the blacks, you, the browns, and of course, we, the Indians, were not capable of ruling yourself, not capable of, becoming a civilized people. And it is a burden of white and Europeans to make you civilized, which is famously known as white's man burden. You must have heard it. Now, what is interesting, in those days, history's interpretation emerged very differently. And what Praveen was saying, historiography often looks very tough subject. Actually, it is a very interesting subject. And maybe because in our colleges and the school it is not taught in properly, we will definitely help how this colonial interpretation, how this nationalist interpretation, the Marxist interpretation, the communal historians, the subaltern studies, and now what is called post-colonial historians. These are all in different phases. Do not be afraid with the terms, but this would help you how the same partition is looked differently by Marxists. Like most Marxists and subaltern would say that partition of India was actually a class struggle between middle class Muslims versus middle class Hindus. Initially, which was upper middle class zamindars versus Hindu zamindars, it came to middle class Muslims and middle class Muslims. And most scholars agree today that actually it was not religion which was the reason for partition. It was representation of Muslims versus others, which Ambedkar also raised, which other groups also raised. So this partition, which we common people look as a Hindu-Muslim conflict, that historians of Marxist subalterns look differently. And that interpretation would enlighten you in our classes and when you read it. So, two very important things in history, which once you understand, and then the third, what is your logical conclusion of the question which was asked? This, of course, we will help. This would help in getting 280 plus. So, history is not merely facts. Out of your, say, 100 words, fact, you have to write 20%, 30%, not more than that. More than that is understanding, is analytical ability, and connecting the dots. And that is very interesting, enjoyable journey. The second advantage history would have, that it would help in your GS paper immensely. Sometime very directly, paper 1, some questions of paper 2, some questions of paper 4, like you heard about Gandhi and Tagore, Gandhi and Ambedkar. This comparative studies about the thinkers of modern India is asked in paper 4. Then they ask in essay paper. Some essay is directly taken from history, say statements of Mahatma Gandhi. Be the change what you want to see in others. This was a question in essay. Now, many questions of essay you can answer better than others because you have read ancient, medieval, modern, world history. So your canvas is big. And once your canvas is big, you have better examples to give. Your facts repository treasure would be richer than others. You understood this? And that is why students of history, social sciences do write better in paper like essay. And essay carries huge weight. Now, one important area where you can do better is MCQ. Your prelims question out of 100, 20 at least would be asked from history, ancient, medieval, modern, and what you call art and culture. It is all part of Indian history and culture. And those who are good, they can crack prelims much easier. Though prelims today is challenging because of two reasons. One, the number of candidates are ever increasing. Two, the kind of questions which they are asking is no more cakewalk, is no more just general knowledge. It is conceptual and factual both in the same question. And that makes prelims challenging. So your GS class, your optional class would help in your prelims, in your multiple GS essay. And finally, it is going to help in your interview because interview, essay, and paper 4 are checking your intellectual depth. And that is what my third point linked with this exam. This paper history is one such few paper which would develop your intellectual depth. And since this exam is not for middle level job, SSC level job, it is for highest level government of India's bureaucrats, the state government's bureaucrats who literally run the administration. So they should have intellectual depth. Like India and US is having trade talks, and any time the news would come, and we are waiting what India is going to deal. And I met many those Indian bureaucrats and technocrats who had been in Montreal Protocol. You heard it? Who had been in various negotiators, and luckily I had a chance to work with them in university. So they said that how bargain become very difficult, and how some countries had actually mastered in bargaining, like Japanese, like Iranians were very good bargainers, and also of late Indians had emerged as a good bargainer since 1990s. Before 1990s, Indians were not very good bargainers. So African and Asian countries now looking India because opposite side is Americans and the top G7 countries. And obviously they have more bargain power. Who would have more bargain power anywhere in the world or at your friend level also? Tell me, what is the logic behind who would have a stronger bargain power? First, stronger access to resources. So Americans and West European countries have better technology, better funding. International organizations are in their control, IMF, World Bank, etc. So generally, they impose their things on what we call third world or emerging countries. But there are other also who can do much better bargaining purely by intellectual prowess. And this is where some ancient Chinese, Iranians, and Indians were famous for using, because during negotiation, it's all about selling an idea, selling a dream. You understood this? And that is why our foreign affairs bureaucrats, because many of them in negotiators would be IAS officer, would be IFS officer, would be from various technical services, academicians who are talking and keep talking in various, delegation. These people must have what? Intellectual depth, because the opponent is also very prepared. So on live talk, when you're talking with some of the best brain of the world, do you have that capacity to defend your country, to argue for your country, to bargain for the country? So UPSC is looking that when you are in the 30s and 40s of your career, would you develop that insight or not? And they would check it early. So in the early days also, you have to work at grassroots level, village level, block level, district level, and at the higher level, middle level, you have to work at a state level, central level, and also international level. History is one subject which helps in this one. That is why if you just check it, pre 1986 IAS exam, almost every candidate would have at least one paper history. I met at least, I can say, 30 plus secretary level IAS, because I was part of that team in a university system where all the secretaries and former bureaucrats would come and have mock interviews and discussions. So those who were in 60s, 70s and early 80s, his one paper is physics, another is history, one paper is mathematics, another was history. And at that time they had a different type of paper called higher, lower, that was the name of papers, now what we call GS1 and GS2, etc. So what my point, why they took it? Because UPSC and Government of India wanted to teach them certain subjects like law, like administration, like history and culture, and like technology. All these subjects would empower you to become a very good bureaucrat in country and for country abroad. And that is what this subject is very important for developing, what I said, your intellectual depth. Once you have intellectual depth, this would be resonating in not only paper 1 but paper 2, paper 4, and in interview. So your number in interview has a huge chance to cross 180 plus. And the moment you got 175 plus in interview, you can be in rankers, you can be in your desired subject. So what I saw, that if suppose 20 students I knew who are toppers from history, almost 18 of them got 175 plus marks in interview. So there is a direct correlation between good students of history and good marks in essay and good marks in interview. You got the logic. The reason is this, that these subjects like paper 4, like essay and like interview actually requires more intellectual depth. There are certain subjects in which more facts, more data and more current affairs can fetch you good marks. But even if you do very hard work in GS paper 1 to 3, the chances of getting more than 110 is very difficult. But in paper 4, you can get 140 plus. In essay, one of my students got 167. 140s, 130s. I have plenty of my students who got in essay. And some of the best number in UPSC, 200 plus. Luckily, I had those students here and in some other places, our team's students, and they got 180, 190 plus. And one reason is that they had this one. It may come through political science also, sociology also, but as I told, history gives you bigger canvas. Your vocabulary would be much better because you are going to use lot of terms which defines your sentences, and sometimes one brief sentence, one term can sum up, because in this exam you have to write in very short, 150 words, 250 words, very short. You have to give answer in interview also, 2-3 sentences. But if your vocabulary is ordinary and weak, then you have to take too much sentences. But one word can make huge difference, and that you would get from what I said. Suppose you are talking in a conversation in interview, that why there are a problem in modern day world, that people are enjoying fake news. They're not confirming whether this news is right or wrong, though it would not take much time to confirm now. Have you noticed that? Like during Operation Sindoor, you heard so much fake news. India has captured Lahore. India had captured Karachi. We were joking among teachers, let's go to have a class in Lahore and have a biryani from Karachi. But what happened? Was it real or it emerged as a fake? Why we don't confirm it? Because we are living an era which is called post-truth. Now, the moment you use this word, the teacher knows you have intellectual depth. And what is that? We are living in an era in which truth is no longer relevant. We are not bothered about truth. Whereas the entire Indian philosophy, Hindu religion to Islam religion, is based on truth. Satyamev Jayate. Ramayana is based on what? Truth. Why Lord Krishna has to come to help Pandavas instead of Kauravas? Truth. But the same Indian Hindus and Muslims are not interested in knowing truth, and they believe something and they want to prove that what they believe is right. Even that belief system is wrong. That is very dangerous era in which we live. That type of concept I hope you would learn in our classes in history. So that is what I was talking about, the intellectual depth which history would bring. Now, the fourth point I wanted to tell, which is very important for you, is how to write well paper like history. There are few basic rules. The first rule is that what is your study material here in the classes as well as in our study materials in printed form, that is dictated form, explained form, and printed form. Basic books, very basic. Some famous historians you must have heard, like Bipen Chandra, Sumit Sarkar, Ramchandra Guha, as far as modern history is concerned. For medieval and ancient, our colleagues would help, but none of them are going to tell you too many books. In fact, what our philosophy is, if you have 10 history books, donate 9, read one, but read 10 times. So the philosophy here is, if you read too many history books, you may become historian, not IAS officer. And here we are not to make you historians. We are here to make you civil servant. And civil servants, people do not read too many books. Yes, basic books you have to read it. No compromise with that one. So that basic books our teachers we all will tell, which would be minimal. Now the third thing which you must do in every week or month is revision of the entire notes, which you would get, as I told, in both printed form and dictated form. And the fourth thing you must do is regular writing practice. Here we will check your copy. We will give you not only marks but also remarks. And the remarks is of two types generally we give. One is about the question which was asked and how much you justified the answer, so that you get good marks according to the question. And second, what is the language and style you used? In other words, what is your expression power? Now we will train you one very basic things about answer writing, which is a common problem in IAS exam. And what we know, that suppose 14,000 who are writing this year main approximately, there are 6,000 to 7,000 students who would never clear IAS exam. That we know it, unfortunately. I just checked it last week in the university. Three of us checked around 80 copies for those who are writing main this year in August. And what we concluded out of 80 copies, that 65 would not clear this year. Though we just checked 2 essays. But 2 essays are enough to test the water, where you stand in this year. We're not saying they would not clear next year. That, of course, much water would flow till then. But if they do not improve, which I said many of them do not improve. Why they do not improve? Because they do not know what to improve. So they keep doing the same mistake. You would meet hundreds of students every year in Rajendra Nagar, Mukherjee Nagar, Anna Nagar, and Ashok Nagar, right? These are places for coaching institutes who clear prelims every year but not main. Am I right or wrong? And I know many my own candidates who cleared prelims 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, and got 140, 150 in prelims, but never cleared main. But there are candidates who cleared in first attempt or very much second attempt in the main exam. So what is the things which UPSC is looking? The first rule is that the answer which you gave was the answer of the question which was asked, or you gave something else which you thought is the answer. Like when the question was asked, Gandhi's relevance in 21st century. You heard this question? This was the question asked in GS. When the question was asked, without Mahatma Gandhi, freedom struggle of India could have been different somewhat. This was also in GS. In optional paper, they asked that how Plassey was more significant than Buxar. This was asked last year. And they keep asking this type of question. None of these questions require too much facts, understanding. But the problem with the student is the moment they saw Gandhi, they started with Dandi. The moment they saw Gandhi, they started with Champaran. कुछ भाई साहब तो और भी आगे बढ़ गए, कस्तूरबा भी बीच में ले आए, नाथुराम गोडसे भी ले आए. ये सब नहीं पूछा था. गांधी इन साउथ अफ्रीका भी नहीं पूछा था. What was the question? Gandhi's relevance in 21st century. So the first challenge with you would be what was the question and what you answer. Most teacher who goes UPSC, they have a common complaint, and the complaint is the answer was something else, question was something else. So your position is like this: मुझे वो याद है सब कुछ जो हुआ ही नहीं. मुझे है याद वो सब कुछ जो हुआ ही नहीं. तुमने लिखा वो सब कुछ जो पूछा ही नहीं. First line belonged to Javed Akhtar. Second line I added, with all due respect to Javed Sahab. So the point is that be very disciplined in your answer writing, and that is what our training would be, exactly what to write. Now, if you suppose you have got corrected your 5 questions from me, 5 from Mr. Praveen, 5 from Mr. Uh, Rohan Srivastav, who would take for your medieval history, and 5 from Chandravan sir, who would take your world history. So you got how much? 20 sample answers. Now you know what is a benchmark which you have to practice on your own. And after prelims, you start some test series here in Vajiram, and then you are ready for that exam. But if you do not know what is a benchmark, then you are shooting in dark. And that is one of the common problem which students in modern time have, that they read a lot but they don't revise, and what they don't do is they don't write. And that is what our training here, I hope, would help you to crack to 80 plus. Now my colleague would come, Mr. Chandrabhan, shortly, and he would tell something about world history. And once we finish, then 3 of us would be here for taking your questions related to optional history or in general IAS preparation. And whatever your doubts, whatever your queries, please be free. And at least I expect one question from all of you, right? And if the question has already been asked by some of your colleagues, please don't repeat, just ask a new question. And do not worry about the standard of the question, okay? You would learn also how to raise good questions. That is very important in history, because all historians always raise good question. Why partition? Why Gandhi remained silent on partition? Why Gandhi did not go on fast unto death, which he did several times earlier? Am I right? These are some serious questions even from iconic people. So thank you very much for your patience, and my colleague would join.
So I'll be taking your modern world history. And how many of you are a student of our GS program? So fairly enough. So most of you are aware of how we go about our academic schedule, and all of you who are present in the class and the online students, I'm also confident that most of you have taken this decision to prepare your history subject as an optional. So now the I'll not get too much into the uh, content part today. Two things I want to you to understand. First is what will be our approach to study the modern world history. What do we study in modern world history? I must tell you, and then as we will do the classes, we will get into the details of it. So when we study the history of modern world, basically we follow a differential approach. We not only focus on the events that have happened largely from 16th century, but we maybe we start from Renaissance. So we start from 16th century onwards. We not only discuss the events. Generally there is a common misconception that when we study history, we are largely focusing on the events, personalities, and what was their role. But it is not only that, we will be focusing on the philosophies and ideas that has shaped the modern world. So a lot of parallel is there in history and political science, history and sociology when you study the modern world history. But the only thing is that the approach changes when we study the events of Western Europe or Central Europe in around this time. In history, we discuss the events and then gradually we understand what are the ideas or the principles. Because history is not only a subject about events, history is also a subject about understanding the philosophy or the ideology. Whether it is world history, whether it is modern Indian history, whether it is ancient India or medieval India. And this is very, very important for you to understand. Like one of my fellow teacher was discussing about Ashok's Dhamma, which is a matter of historical debate. But then Romila Thapar and Upinder Singh concludes the debate by saying that one of the things that we can rightly say about Dham was that it was a political strategy of a satiated king who had actually reached the limit of his territorial expansion, and he wanted to maintain stability, peace in a diverse kingdom. So that is understanding. So when people start studying history, they have a common misconception that we have to remember more, we have to memorize more, or it is about dates, it is about personalities. But what they fail to work upon is the idea driving that change. Hmm. George William Hegel had said that ideas are the basis of change in the society. Dialectic idealism. So when we will discuss, when we will be doing our modern world history, we'll be not only focusing upon the events, but again, so many things have happened in the world from 16th century to till this day. Hmm. We cannot study all. So we will be studying those events that has shaped the modern world. And if you look at the history of the world from 16th century to Second World War, then we see that it was a Europe dominated world. Therefore, when we study the world history, we follow a Eurocentric approach. Means we study the history of modern world from the prism of certain European countries, especially Western European countries. I've been saying this. What was their role and how they played an important role not only in modernizing themselves and then also the rest of the world through trade and commerce and colonialism. So we will understand all this. We'll be starting from Renaissance, Reformation, Age of Science, Enlightenment, then the revolutions, rise of nationalism, and then conflict of nation states and attempt towards peace, rise of global institutions. So there are multiple ways in which you can approach the subject. You can give it a philosophical orientation also. You have to understand the socio-economic changes that are also happening. Because if you see the questions that are being asked in the mains examination optional, then they are not only focusing on the political changes, but they have even gone to the extent of understanding what was the changing social dynamics, gender dynamics in Europe at various instances. That is why they ask questions like how after World War One, the 1920s, which are also called as the Roaring Twenties, presented a new dimension of feminism. So few years back, people would of history optional would never prepare this. They would never get into the social dynamics a lot. But now it is required. That is why the first thing that I tell students before you start your optional preparation is that you should have a basic idea of what has transpired in India and the world as far as your syllabus is concerned. Because when you have a basic idea what happened in the Indian subcontinent after the beginning of second urbanization, what were the drivers of change, why it is said that after 6th century land grants was one of the most important catalyst of change in the all domains of the Indian subcontinent, and later R.S. Sharma goes on to say it was responsible for the rise of Indian feudalism. How the arrival of Islamic rulers brought changes, but also they maintained some of the earlier institutions, or did they maintain? What happened when the Europeans came to India? So what actually happens is that when we start preparing, definitely there is the vastness in the syllabus, which people often question. How do we manage such a vast syllabus? But I always answer it by saying that even if you prepare or you don't prepare history as an optional subject, you have to prepare a significant portion of Indian history and world history for your GS. You have to prepare. The only thing that you add here is that the dimensions get more and maybe the degree of depth is increased. The degree of depth would increase. So it is my suggestion to all those students who are not from history background, means for them their graduation subject or post graduation subject was not history, who are going to join it, and you are welcome, because many people who do well in history optional are not from history background. But definitely you have to do a bit of homework. And the homework is that you must have a fair idea of it. So if you can read few chapters of NCERT, that would help you more, so that you can connect in the class. First thing is this. Second, history optional is not about historiography. This is a common misconception. In college, when you write your history paper, you quote the research, you quote archaeological evidences, and you quote historians' views. But when you write for civil services examination, maybe you prepare, but you don't have to be fixated on historians' views. I'll tell you, for example, in modern world history, we'll be doing a lot of historiography, but I always say this, and in the first class also, I'm reminding you that when your answer is being checked, your comprehension or your understanding of the subject or the topic is checked the first, and then your knowledge of it is checked. That is why many people who are in their first attempt, they write means they do very well and they eventually clear the examination. Whereas many others who have been studying it for years, they are somewhere stuck in the mid range, that is 240 to 245. So preparing history optional is not only studying but understanding the expectation of the commission from the aspirants, because you cannot remember everything that you have studied or you will study when you are into services. But if you understand the essence of it, then it will be of use for you in the later life also. So it is very, very important. Answer writing is not about reproducing your notes. It is about understanding and then writing in your own words, legible, to the point, and wherever required, substantiate it with the historical evidences and historians' views. I'm not going to discuss about the numerous books, because we try to make it a point in our classroom, which is extended for 6 months, is that we give so much of content that reading books becomes an optional thing. We do provide printed material that is for reference, and yes, if time permits, especially for students who are into appearing for 2027 or later, you can read it. There are a number of wonderful books. Every week we find that in the Hindu, a book review is published. Today, a doctor has written a book on the Gadar movement. I was just reading before coming to the session. So many good books by Indian authors, Western authors are there. But then again, because the time is limited, and apart from preparing history optional, you have to do a lot of GS, answer writing. Then you have the CSAT, so many things. So we discourage students from venturing into too many areas. But again, if you feel like reading a book, then we prescribe one standard book, or at max, selective readings from 2 standard books. It can happen. It can happen. But otherwise, one thing that we suggest and we expect of you is discipline and continuity. UPSC preparation is a 2-year process, where at least for 1 year you prepare through the classroom, or few students do self-study. And then 1 year is the examination cycle. To maintain the same momentum, level of motivation, attention span is definitely a matter of challenge. It is some sort of tapasya only. Tapasya not in strict Hindu way of asceticism, but yes, you are a tapasvi or a tapaswin for the next 2 years. Why? Because you have to let go of so many of the distractions or the general, I would say, recreations that many of your contemporaries, kith and kins and friends are enjoying. Because you are preparing not for an exam, but for a career, for a vocation. And the moment you decided to prepare a subject, prepare for an exam, you are aware of these challenges. So first thing that you have to do is to be regular for the classes. 1, revise the notes on a regular basis, develop an understanding, keep answer writing, and then our classes are very engaging. You can interact with the faculty before the class, after the class. That is not a cause of concern. But you have to do all these things along with the other areas also. As far as this subject is concerned, so studying modern world history at times becomes a challenge for few students, because generally our level of awareness of the history of modern world is lesser than that of Indian history. Even people who do not prepare for civil services, they know about most of the significant developments of Indian history. Second, Indian history is also linear in nature, means there is a sequence. One thing follows the other. So you are able to be on track with respect to the story. But in world history, it is not a linear flow. It is more like a dendritic pattern, where there are different, I would say, civilizations, different states, and each of them are connected via central thought. So maybe in the first class when we start, we'll be doing with North Italy, Renaissance. And then we will move to Central Europe, German states, North Germany, where we'll have Reformation. Then we'll come to England and France for scientific revolution and enlightenment. And in the meanwhile, something remarkable is happening. That is American Revolution. So it is interesting, I am sure, but the approach has to be different. And why the approach has to be different? Because it is not a linear flow. Modern world history and international relations are very much organically linked. Political, historical linkage is there. So what is happening between Iran and Israel? What are the different phases? You might not know, but there was a time when Israel was a close ally of Iran and was even ready to share the details of making a atom bomb with Iran. But then the relations got fraught. Iran had very cordial relations with the West Asia. US was the kingmaker. I'm not talking about that. But then relations between Iran and many of the West Asian countries, they became strained after the 1979 Iranian Revolution. So definitely it is very interesting. But again, we cannot have that same approach. So I suggest students that those who have lost touch with modern world history, because the last time probably when you had prepared modern world history, it was in class 10th, is it? You can read few NCERTs, or better than that, if you can have access to our yellow books. Last year I edited the yellow book, which is an excellent source. So instead of purchasing books in the market, if you can get access to our yellow book, then read few chapters. It's not a very voluminous book. That will give you a very good understanding. Very good understanding. And then as we have classes, as we progress, we have our sectional tests also. Sectional tests which will be evaluated by the faculties, and they will give you feedback. And these feedbacks are very valuable. Why? Because you have time to make course corrections now. You should not delay your answer writing for next year when you have cleared prelims, and then you will be doing answer writing for the next 2.5 months. That time, there is definitely a lot of thing on the plate. So for now, I will not get into too much of detail. I have to tell you few things about modern world history. So we will get to it. We'll understand the dynamics of modern world history. And many of you are familiar faces, I know. So you have already done, and those of you who have not done, who are not our GS students, do not worry, because in either case, I'll start from scratch. I'll start from the dark ages. But yes, one approach that I also follow in modern world history, whether it is GS or optional, is that wherever possible, I will draw a link with India, because there is a link. Many a times what happens in Europe has its repercussions on India. So when we discuss the Pitt India Act 1784, we understand that it was passed in the backdrop of the British loss of 13 American colonies. When we study the Irish Rebellion 1798 inspired by the American War of Independence, then definitely we can draw a linkage with the Home Rule movement of 1916. So there is definitely a sea of content to cover. That is what UPSC is about. And that would require a lot of physical and mental stamina. Physical stamina to hai, to sit in the class for 2.5 hours or 3 hours is definitely not an easy task. And mental stamina, because during that period, you will have to keep thinking with the faculty. So welcome to the trekking of one of the, the topmost mountain of Indian academics, that is UPSC preparation. So it would actually redefine you. It will reform you as a person also, I can tell you for sure. But the purpose is not to be a reformed person. The purpose is to actually get into the hallowed services. So always keep that in mind. That is why Tariq sir was saying that we don't try to give you so much content that you turn into a historian. We don't want you to become a historian. Even if you have interest, you can pursue that interest when you are in services. So we will try to balance analysis, and also we will create a Lakshman Rekha that let us not deviate beyond the syllabus, because we have less time. So 6 months is the period where you'll not only be preparing your history optional, but preparing history optional means that you will be having very good command over your history GS also. And that will reflect. If you prepare well, then those questions in prelims examination, as Praveen sir was saying that there are many terms, but believe me, all these terms you will come across in your optional. not once but multiple times, so that what is a surprise or a shock element for GS students is more of a certainty for an optional student. So when you prepare optional, you revise the class notes, then it automatically takes care of the difficult questions, which are at least 6 to 7 in the GS prelims paper, and you understand what is the significance of 7 difficult questions in prelims examination. That gives you an edge. So I'm not counting on the advantages, but I'm telling that in 6 months, basically 2.5 months you prepare for GS. So actually, what is the time you are giving only for optional preparation? 3.5. So if you go by pure mathematics also, so it is not a lot of time. But again, let us not get into the numbers. The most important part is that you are preparing a subject that you like, you associate with, and that should be your first criteria for choosing an option. Second, you have a level of understanding and you have guidance also. Why guidance is required? It's not that you cannot prepare on your own, because you have limited time and you don't want to get confused in the chakreview of so many content. So today aspirants are facing a problem of plenty. Not only so many books are there, but institutes come up with their material claiming that these material actually caters to whatever comes in the examination. So we will try to keep you on track. We will try to not let you get distracted, and we'll be having classes 7 days a week. While we will be having classes 7 days a week, because we have to complete the syllabus on time, and we want you to prepare history optional at least for 3 to 4 hours every day till the time syllabus is completed. That is the reason. As far as I can think of, the timing of the classes would be in the evening, 5:30. Fine. So now I leave it to you to ask any doubt if you have. Tariq sir is also here. So any doubt that you have with respect to history optional preparation, you can please ask and we'll try to answer and clear all of your doubts.
Yes, any question?
What would be the ideal time to start with answer writing? Let's say if we have started the course after 1 week or 2 week of preparation, or right from the day the class starts.
First week, more than enough. You got at least 1 topic or 2 topics completed in first week, right? Now, what would happen after first week? Another topic would start. So do not carry your burden of leftover job. So finish at least certain portion of your job. And what is that? Finish the basic points, as Parveen sir was also taking. You should note in every classes. As I told, some of the concepts of each of the points, you should have noted it. And then what we discussed, that answer writing is key to get to 80 marks. So remember certain key principle in this exam. This exam is for those who believe in process, not in mega events. You're getting that? What I mean by mega event, that sometime some motivator can come and motivate you. It's good, but for how long? Once, twice, thrice, 4 times in a year. But most of the time you have to involve in the process. And when I say process, I mean reading, revising, and writing. So you should have written 10 to 15 times more than what is the total number of questions asked in UPSC. Clear? Okay, can you repeat, please? Whether history option you should start first or GS first. That's what you're saying? Optional. No, you have to start all put together. You cannot say that I would start GS later, history first, or vice versa. Because when you have time given by UPSC 2026, so you have limited time. So if you're writing in 2026, then you have to start. There is no other option. It's not like in our hand. But by the time you should come to January, at least certain portion of history is covered, many portion of GS is covered, and then Feb, March, April, May you can reserve for prelims, objective type, etc. And then after prelims you have to come again for your answer writing practice and some leftover parts which you might have missed in reading, that you can do it later on. So you have to continue this journey, both optional and GS together. And not only that, even prelims and main part together, not separately. Yes. Take this,
Is there any other optional batch? So we have 3 batches now in a year. April, we are already with 1 batch running. Then another batch is in the next 2 days, I think 7th of July. We have another batch in the month of October, somewhere in the mid of October. So for those of students who are unable to join because of some reason, you can try for that batch. But it is generally advisable that if you have time, prepare as early as possible the optional, because it takes a lot of uh, reading. It is better that you have time when you can revise, read, ask doubts, solve PYQs, do sectional tests. Because as you delay it, then also it happens that when, for example, you join in October, then you have to be prepared with that mindset that in the later phases you have to prepare optional classes along with the preparation for prelims examination. So people manage that also. So yes, we do have.
Ayushi is asking that she is in second year and shall she start right now? She's appearing in 2028, right?
It is too early.
So I think whether October or next April, that would be better. And you have to also, make sure that you do well in your graduation. So do not take it lightly, unlike the quota students, they have a dummy schools, right? We don't suggest it, because what we suggest here is your schools and colleges studies are important, and it is overall personality developments which helps immensely in civil service exam, not only marks of that one. So if you are in your colleges first, second, third year, or some of your siblings, advise them to participate in essay writing, debate writing, extempore, college fest, sports. Because in UPSC, when the resume is rich and diverse, such students always fetch good marks and also help in essay writing, paper 4. Because this exam is not based on books. Books would help you 30-40%. It's exam based on life, and life is a spread. So in fact, we suggest also to read some other books other than course, like the third pillar of Raghuram Rajan, like the Sapiens of Yuval Noah Harari. These are the books which, like this Argumentative Indians of Amartya Sen. Now, many of these books would shape your personality, and as I told in my lecture, that it would help you in developing intellectual depth. So enjoy life fully and watch good sports also, like Wimbledon is going on. This is important in this exam for various reasons why sports are not doing well in India. This was SAR in one of your essay. So that is the beauty of this exam, that it would keep you engaged in multiple activities, whether in college or post college. So never rush only for coaching and only for materials. Coaching would assist to certain level. Yes. One candidate has asked again and again whether it is lengthy or not. I think we have spoken a lot on that one, which is a myth. All subjects are equally good in terms of length. Sometimes what happens, that when you see from outside chapter 10, in another subject chapter 15, but you do not know the weight of chapter 10 can be equivalent to the weight of chapter 15. So that is how you have to see it from total perspective rather than only the number of chapters given. And in fact, in subject like history, each of our faculty would suggest you can skip this, and without taking any risk, you can skip some of the chapters, some of the topics. We will tell not necessarily to cover all 100%. Of course, we will teach all 100%. But in your own practice and revision, you can skip at least 20% of your syllabus and still you're not at risk. So that also helps, right?
Answer writing part of the optional batch, answer writing test series. So
Yes. Actually, we individually conduct in two forms. One, we give questions. One, you can write on your own from PYQ. And one, we will have some institutional test that would be conducted by Vajiram. We will be checking and evaluating and giving here in the classroom itself with test-like environment, right? And of course, you're also free to write as much as possible. What we know from our experience, कि आप लिखते लिखते थक जाओगे, हम चेक करते करते नहीं थके. You hit my point or not? Because that is how we have trained ourselves, and Chandrabhan Sahab is doing, I think, great job. He is doing already to much more than us because he is younger also than us, right? Yes. Yes.
Yes, I'm also preparing for 2027.
Good.
So there is one October batch that is going to come.
Yes.
So sir talked about homework right now. Okay, you should certain homework before joining the.
Yes.
So if you can suggest some of the readings.
11th and 12th NCRT would be the best one for the beginners. And there would be some basic readings, like as I told, other than normal textbook. Also read to broaden. Like I personally would suggest to read one for all of you. Incarnation is a book written by Sunil Khilnani. This book talks about 50 Indians, from Mahatma Buddha to Mahatma Gandhi to Dhirubhai Ambani to Raj Kapoor to, you heard Amir Khusro, you heard Malik Ambar, you heard Kabir, you heard Nanak, you know Akbar, you know Ambedkar. So what he had done in that book, that he had given a brief, say, resume about the thoughts of those people, works of those people, very historically. And it is going to open a good opening for you about India, because those through 50 greats in Indian, of course, he had his own right to put Dhirubhai Ambani among the greats also. But through that characters, you would know India in ancient, medieval, and medieval modern period. Like one very good book for all Indians, irrespective of his or her profession, is India since Gandhi, written by Ramchandra Goa. It's a beautiful journey from 1947 to say 2000, and every Indian should read that how India progressed in the last 75 years despite all odds. And since a historian's perspective is much better than say a journalist perspective or say some other subjects perspective, because they uses those materials which is not easily used by other scholars. And that is why some books is like before you come to classes would always help, right? Yes.
नीचे कीजिए, let's see.
Karan has asked,
Already.
sir, can you be little slow?
So there are few questions.
Karan is
I'm interested. So people have few common, I would say, doubts, not myth, I would say. One is that it is a lengthy subject. Yes, it is lengthy. But again, the entire discussion of measuring a subject by the length of the syllabus is faulty, because some of the subjects may have a shorter syllabus if you try to print it. But the interpretation is so much, for example, sociology, and uncertainty is that much that you do not know, even after preparing, that whether the question that comes in the examination and what you have written is actually what was asked. In terms of history, this is better that uncertainty is less, because the themes do get repeated. They don't try to come up with surprising questions. And even if there are, because in optional paper you can leave, you have option of leaving questions, you can opt. So that part is taken care of. And as I am already saying, we have been saying this, that you do already a lot of GS preparation while you prepare optional. So basically 6 months is optional plus GS. We don't present it in that way, but basically it is GS plus optional. Fine. So while you are preparing optional, then you can definitely, your GS preparation is very well taken care of. Otherwise, for example, if somebody does not take history optional, still has to do a lot of reading, world history, modern Indian history, Praveen sir's in ancient India, post-independence, medieval India, art and culture. So you have to do a lot of, and because every year 20 to 22 questions are asked, you cannot ignore it. And people do solve it. If you leave it, somebody else will solve and clear the prelims examination. So try to understand in that way. Second thing, as far as dates are concerned, I have been saying this, that many dates you will remember because you will be coming across multiple times. For example, right from your school days, you know what was the year in which Quit India movement, and in fact the date also, 8th August, everybody knows it. And as far as many dates are concerned, then you, instead of remembering 1741, you will start using 1740s, mid 18th century, and they will not deduct your marks.
Yeah.
They never ask dates in the prelims examination. Have you seen? I don't think in UPSC they'd ask. Maybe in state services they ask.
And if they ask few, like last year they asked 7th of August 1905, Swadeshi movement started. The second statement was 7th August 2022, Prime Minister inaugurated Khadi program. You get my point? So what they do, that some of the dates which had been in news recently, and that date was important in the past, they connected. So the idea behind this is that many such topics of history, which was in news recently for good or bad reasons, right? Like somebody's 150th years of birthday was celebrated recently. Like once Maulana Azad won 50th birth centenary, so a question was on Maulana Azad. Now, suppose some events like 1857, 150th year of 1857 was celebrated in 2007. So obviously some question related to that one. But that would come in newspapers. That's something which happened, suppose in 1919, Jallianwala Bagh took place. So in 2019, 100 years of Jallianwala Bagh, or 1917 Champaran, 2017 Champaran. So many such centenaries, because we India love to celebrate what birthdays, centenary, silver jubilee, diamond jubilee, planetum jubilee. इससे ज़्यादा celebration India से कहीं नहीं होता world में. So historians and teacher also keep asking how to guess the questions. Newspaper mein, whatever is going on about history, just be aware and you can predict some prelims question. There is a question asked that would we teach different separately ancient, medieval, modern world? No. We have designed our syllabus that in the same week you would get at least 2 faculty. Yeah, it means 2 subjects. Next week, another 2 subjects. So in a month, you would get classes of all ancient, medieval, modern, and world history. Similarly, in GS also, we do the same. The reason behind it is that because you have to write the entire IAS exam in a span of 5 days. And your optional, you have to write same day. Paper 1, 2 in first session, paper 2, 3, 4 in the second. So you have to train right from the beginning how to jump from one period to another period. But suppose we teaches you in the month of July only modern and in the month of August. So you would develop a mindset that when you remember ancient, you don't remember medieval and vice versa. So initially, it may look to you, oh my God, too many subjects. But it takes just, I would say, 10 days to adjust. It's like when you came to Delhi, first week must be tough for anybody who came first time and stayed here. But then you adjust. So adaptability is very much natural to human, and you would also adapt our culture of academic culture. But what is interesting of this subject, this way, that you can correlate the 2 events. Like the events of world history is connected with Indian history. World War impacts Indian history also. You understand this? So that is why
I will just like to add one thing.
Yeah.
I was reading last month a book. I'll not tell the book, otherwise people will be overwhelmed. That one of the hazards of modern technology is that it is taking away our evolutionary instinct. Try to understand. In a significant course of human history, we have remembered so many things and we have transferred it to our generation in a oral format. Whether it is Indian history, whether it is the Bardic history, or in your family, your great grandmother used to tell the folk songs to your grandmother, to your mother, and then you see to your sisters, other. So you would never ask your mother or ask your parents. They would never have this strain or tension. All this tension has cropped up. Why? Because today, for everything that we want to note, we have a mobile phone. Hmm? There was a time not long ago, people used to remember the mobile, or not mobile, phone numbers of their parents, essential friends. So have we become naive? Are we moving away from intelligence? No, we are underestimating ourselves. Believe me that once you start enjoying the subject, your evolutionary instinct will kick in. It is very common. Those people who are connoisseurs of football, they remember exactly what was the score line for the last 5 World Cup finals. I do that without making an effort for it. Or what was the prominent things that happened in the 2023 World Cup. ये भी तो data है ना? That is also data. So why does that not concern you? Because you are again driven by your evolutionary instinct. So understand this. It is a myth or something that you have created for yourself, that you do not have the capacity to remember content. Otherwise, also in all the optional subjects, I think in maths also, you will have to remember many formulas.
Yeah.
So you have to do analysis and you have to memorize also. Please do not suppress your evolutionary instinct because you have so much of technology. And that is the biggest hazard, because man is becoming so dependent that today now a time would come when machines will start making marriage matches also. So that will also be taken away. So let us not do that. We are homo deus generation. We tend to become like God. So I'm just giving you a normal perspective. Otherwise, also in our class, we do it in a such a way, interactive way, all four of us, that it appears more like a narrative than like a pure fact.
Good. Some students are asking whether how online candidates' copies would be evaluated, right? So whether you're offline and online, because even offline people sometimes goes home and they write it. So what we do, you write and convert in PDF form, send it to our mails, and then we would evaluate and give remarks, and then we will post it through your mails, right? This we are already doing to your previous batches. In fact, I have already checked in the last month more than 50 copies, and 10 more are waiting. In this week, I will send it to those April batch students. So earlier batch also we have done it. So it's, as I told, regular exercise, and it is easier for us also. Even if we are traveling, we do check it in our tab, and that becomes very handy. And as government also promotes less paper, so we suggest it to send it through PDF form, and that you can store in your file, because we would not only give marks as I told, we would give remarks, and two types of remarks would help. One is the exact question and answer, what you missed and what you wrote, and one is your answer writing style, your language, your expression, your structure of the answers, and this would help immensely, right? Okay, any other question? GS and optional classes, if you're doing it, as I told to that gentleman, you can do it together. No harm. In fact, it would save you time, and you can use that save time for your future practice session. And since many part of GS is common in optional, but some parts is not, because GS is also for prelims, and optional is not for prelims, because of which what happens, certain portion which we don't teaches in optional paper, like too much factual details, data are not needed in your optional paper, but in GS they do require some of the factual details, some of the data, some of the personalities, that we will do it in GS. So you can definitely, as Chandraban Sahab has said a few minutes back, would be better in your GS paper, whether it is objective and subjective, and that would help a lot, which I said, that how history would resonate in your different GS paper, both in objective as well as in subjective paper, right? So one candidate has written a very long question, almost essay type. So please learn to write your question in short, very small as possible, 1 to 2 lines. Can you just forward the question?
So the question is that the student has asked that what do I have to do along with the classes? You have to follow the classes. Believe me, we'll be following a basic approach right from zero, right from narration of the events to analysis. And as all of us conduct sectional tests from time to time, so you will be writing tests not after the coaching is over, after the classes are over, during the classes, and get feedback. What background is required? I have already suggested that for people who are not from history optional background, especially for areas like modern world history, where general awareness is less, you can pick up class 9th old NCRT book where there are few chapters. I'm not telling you to read all, few chapters on Renaissance, Reformation, imperialism, colonialism, and then class 11th and 12th NCRT, American Revolution, old NCRT. So in the beginning, once you have read few chapters, once you understand how things are getting linked, then you can rely completely on the classes. That is it.
And do not have this myth that your background was not history. First of all, just check data. 65% people in Missouri right now are engineers. Around 10-12% are doctors. And they are other subjects from all streams: science, arts, commerce, technology, humanities. Now, what UPSC is looking is some basic IQ, some intellectual depth, and certain qualities which is required for an IAS officer, IPS officers, etc. So they have designed the syllabus in such a way that your background may not matter, at least in certain optional: history, political science, sociology, anthropology, geography, public administration, etc. Anybody can take it. Of course, there are very specialized subjects like agriculture, like geology, like chemistry, like medical science, like law. Only those candidates opt who had done something PG and undergrads. But the popular subjects which we call, even literature, you can take it any literature, any language of India, provided you know some of the basics of that language and you have certain aptitude of that language. And sometimes you do not know your own aptitude till you go inside. So I know many my own students, like engineers taking Urdu literature and passed, and today he's an IAS officer. He got 296 in Urdu and he got All India 36th rank. And when I checked when you studied Urdu last time, he said in 10th class. Of 10th class, we all read Urdu, Hindi, Kashmiri, Bengali. Am I right? So many students opt Hindi, opt English literature, but English literature becomes difficult without having background in English honors. But other, like once a girl topped from Malayalam literature, right? I think 5-6 years back, and she also was not from PG in Malayalam literature. So this is what the beauty of this exam, that irrespective of your background, you just have to understand what is required in this exam, which of course we will help. And sometimes your background can be your curse rather than blessing. Not always, sometimes. For instance, you studied history but from a very ordinary college. Sorry to say, but we have all types of colleges. So you read something false narrations, something very ordinary, and now you have to remove it. So it is called unlearning. You understood this? And those who come afresh, so we have to start such candidates from zero. And those who have already read but read wrong, so we have to start from minus. You get my point or not? So first, from minus to zero takes time, because such students take time to remove many such, as I told, myth what she or he might have read it. So it is called blessing in disguise, that you never read history and you are getting first time, and you can easily understand what Chandrabhan Sahib would tell about Nazis' origin. But you have already some thing read about Hitler, and who knows that you might have praised Hitler also, because I know there are many Indians who praises Hitler and they says we need a Hitler like man. Am I right? And usko correct करने में चंद्रभान साहब को लगेगा 1 हफ्ता. But those who have never read about Hitler and Nazis, he can start his ideology and his policy, so it would be good. But point is, whether you studied in your graduation history or not, that is not going to make huge difference. Another reason is this exam is more applied based. The questions here which is asked is different from the academic question. So the question they would ask which is related to real administration. You should this, especially in modern history, most of the questions is very relevant to modern period, and what modern world history is also very much related to modern what is called world order and the issues. So they would connect the past and the present, especially the modern past and the contemporary India, right?
B.R. Ambedkar had studied economics in London, but we don't study B.R. Ambedkar for his contribution to economics of India. We study him as the most prominent social engineers. So sometimes your background does not matter, your interest and your orientation does. So somebody has asked that I have done BTech. Should I choose PSIR or history? Both of them are interesting optionals. So whatever, because I think you have done a bit of polity reading, international relations reading, and also history. So you can try with studying both of them for a week and then accordingly take a decision, because definitely both of them are very interesting. All the optionals are interesting, to be honest.
Yes,
So you should be driven by your interest.
In a lighter note, what I said, what Tanish has asked, that I have done BTech, but what you would recommend history and PSIR, right? It shows that he did not study BTech properly. Are you getting note? It's a lighter note because UPSC has given you civil engineering, mechanical engineering, and electrical engineering optional. 4 साल उस सब्जेक्ट को पढ़ने के बाद उससे बेवफाई कर रहे हो, and now you are coming, but that is because I know that many engineers, they join engineering college for a different purpose. Over a period of time they realize it is not my cup of tea, and this is where history is going to give you an option to revisit, right? Is there is any dynamism in history optional? I told one of the most dynamic subject, at least I understand, is history, because canvas is very big and almost every type of human issues, economic, political, social, cultural, philosophical, linguistic, is going to be discussed in history optional. And that one thing is very sure, the journey is going to be very interesting. Often people see the destination. I see enjoy the journey. The destination would come later on, but the process you should enjoy. And once you start enjoying studies, things become easier. Then study would not look burden and boring for you. Then 8 to 9 hours would be like just like fun. But the moment you took a subject which is like boring and burdening yourself, and you took it because of some topper's advice or someone else's advice, not your heart and soul is with that subject, then you would be in trouble. So you should finally decide on the basis of your own heart and soul. It's like this: when you go to a restaurant, which food you order, which is the best. But when you see some other table, काश मैंने वो order kiya hota, and you ordered, and then you tasted, and then you realize you can't eat it. Am I right? So optional subject is like that one. Do not fall in trap. Do not go, usne kaha tha, my roommate says it. Learn from your own self. Read few chapters from some short listed subject, 3 short lists, you can do that. And then you see, okay, your heart and soul is with that subject, whether it is history or polity or whether it is sociology or anthro, that you have to decide. You understand? So once you have decided, then you please join our classes, not half-heartedly, that after 10 days you realize that it is not your cup of tea. Of course, coaching has allowed you to attend some of those classes of different subjects, so that you should know also that after listening lectures, after reading few chapters, whether you are getting it or not, you are enjoying it or not. So that is one benefits here you can have it, right? You were asking, please.
Any afternoon batch from 14th July?
Afternoon we have history optional, I think
Evening,
5:30 only,
evening.
because we have GS batches also, right?
So are you doing GS anywhere? Here, which batch? 5:30.
Okay, Ravi is asking how to manage GS classes with optional classes.
So that is good that if you prepare GS with optional, because in a matter of 10 months, you'll be taking care of both. Definitely, it will require some physical effort and mental also. but it is good. It is good because if you delay it, then your next cycle would be affected. So that is my
Rachna is asking, she has done master in architecture conservation. So can I take up history? Definitely it would help, but I'm sure you would be enlightening the teachers also with your subject, as you can compare the medieval architecture with the modern Indian architecture, ancient architecture with the modern Indian architecture. So at least certain part of your history is going to be well, and I'm sure you can help your friends and some teachers also. Luckily or unluckily, I am not teaching you that part, because modern history do not talk too much about architecture. Our best architecture are in ancient and medieval history. In fact, I read somewhere in Ramchandra Guha's article that unfortunately in last 300 years we have not contributed anything significant in architecture in India, unlike others have created. But our own Indians, from ancient Harappan civilization to Ajanta, to Alloras, to Taj Mahal, to Konark temples, to hundreds and thousands of Dravidian architectures, these are marvels, right? These are world heritage. But what went wrong in the last 300 years that Indians could not make significant thing in architecture? कोई ऐसी बिल्डिंग आपके जहन में हो जो वर्ल्ड फेम हो गया हो लास्ट 200 इयर्स का, या आर्किटेक्चरली मार्वल हो? एक बिल्डिंग है जो बहुत नोटिस में रहता है, वो है मुकेश अंबानी का बॉम्बे में वो मकान, मैंने देखा है 24 मंजिला, बड़ा अजीबो गरीब सा है, बट वो कोई मार्बल तो नहीं हो सकता ना. इट कैन नॉट बी लाइक अ वेरी ब्यूटीफुल एग्जांपल, राइट? In Delhi, there are certain monuments, recently buildings like India Habitat Center, like Akshardham temples, like Baha'i temple. You heard it, Lotus temple, Baha'i temple. These are good, but not at world class level like Burj Khalifa type. A Statue of Unity, in terms of tallest, it is. But what is so unique about it? I mean, as a student of architecture, you ask anyone, what is so unique? कोई चीज बहुत लंबा बना देना, वजनी बना देना, कोई बहुत बड़ा नहीं. Even Statue of Liberty of America is not very unique.
Kailash Nath temple, that is the marvel of architecture,
Yeah.
and how it has been constructed from top to bottom. The more you read about it, you find a lot of glory about what used to happen. Then you see the Brihadeshwar temple.
Yes.
How were they able to? That time there was no system of pulley. How were they able to do it, that carry so much of weight at the top? Then you see the Jagannath temple. It was in news. The modern science has failed to explain many of the phenomena of Jagannath temple. So there are so many temples, mosques in India, which gives us a sense of pride also. So when you study history, you are not only educating yourself, preparing for an examination, you actually tend to marvel, you tend to gloat in our great past, ancient India, medieval India, British also, what did they do? So that is there. We'll discuss all that. Yes.
Like, as we think like static subject, so once who is joining in July, batch would end somewhere around
December.
December.
Yes.
His note would be ready, but someone giving in 27, he would require to do some value addition.
Dynamism is mainly in modern world history, where sometimes, because Cold War is more of contemporary world, so yes, some revision happened, but not much.
Up to which extent that was?
Up to which extent means European history, when they ask question, then definitely they correlate with what is happening now. When they ask question, for example, when Mikhail Gorbachev died, they asked a question that why he failed. So even if something happens in the contemporary times, they will not, because they have to maintain a distinction between PSIR and history. So even if something happens between India and China, a question in history optional will be throw light on India-China relation from, say, independence till now. They will not ask about what is happening now, because that gets into that domain. Theme can be picked from the current, very good, but the question will be historical.
Actually, you have to understand, history subject is written on the basis of some established facts. Since established facts do not come easily to us, unlike journalists would write only with 5% fact, historians cannot write history with 5% fact. So it takes time. So most of the topic of history would be something which has happened 30 years back. In history optional, they would never ask Operation Sindoor. They would ask Kargil. Kargil is old, 1999. Between 1999 to 2025, we have traveled 26 years. So historians are actually not writing about his own generation. He is writing about a generation which is dead. One reason is the fact is more matured by the time. Second, is free from prejudices. When you write about your own time, you're prejudiced with your own likes and dislikes. And every historian has to free his own personal ideal likes, personal ideology or likes and dislikes. That is why a historian who is writing about 1991 economic liberalization can write better rather than a historian who is writing about Mr. Modi's economic reforms. Are you getting not? Because when he writes about Mr. Modi's economic reform, he's alive, Modi Sahab is alive. But Manmohan Singh is not alive. And 1991 is too old. So now Bipin Chandra, who has written in his book, India Since Independence, and Ramchandar Guha, and both has talked about economic liberalization, but not about 2014 onwards in history book. That is in other subjects like in sociology, in political science, in economics, as well as in current affairs, but not in history book. So your 90-95% part would remain same. And as you rightly said, and Chandravan Sahab also corrected, that theme may be taken from what is going on, like world order is changing. Is America is becoming again an imperialist power? Would China's rise and America's rise would be a threat to India? I mean, this type of question. But they would locate in history that the role of India in non-alignment movement, and do you think it is still relevant type? So that is how history is question is, especially modern history of India and modern history of world is linked more with the contemporary world, but not current affair type question, right? Yes.
So if I want to find you offline for doubt resolution, where I can find you?
Firstly, you can find it us here in teachers room. We have given our email IDs to all candidates. You can mail it, and every day we are writing answers to those students. Even when we are traveling, we get some questions. It all depends how you are active. In fact, what we suggest every student in IAS exam be active student, not passive student. What is the difference? Active students would keep asking, would keep pondering, would keep searching something related to this exam. And what I learned from Nasiruddin Shah lecture, which he gave here in National School of Drama, Mandi House, a good student can make an average teacher great teacher. You understood this? A good student can make average teacher great teacher. बाद में मैंने सोचा इसका उल्टा भी तो हो सकता है. समझ आ रहा है? That an average student can make great teacher average teacher. Am I right or wrong? ये उन्होंने नहीं कहा, ये मैंने सोचा. So what I want, and I'm sure Chandravan Sahab also want, to emerge as a great teacher, and for that you have to be a good student. And what is the sign of a good student? You just be attentive, and you just start thinking and raise questions. We will try to give answer to the best of our ability, but believe me, many questions which you would ask, we do not know the answer. And that is the entire beauty of this life, because I asked many professors, she and he did not know the answer, and they said they also asked from the professors. Mahatma Gandhi also did not know answer of many questions. Mahatma Buddha also did not know answer of many questions. So not knowing an answer is not a crime. Not raising a question is a crime in modern age. And that is what most students have stopped raising questions and thinking. UPSC exam is about various questioning ability. And once you develop this, I'm sure you would answer. I got scared after seeing this one.
Yes, yes.
Long text formats of history books, but I want to understand history on conceptual basis for my optional how to do this. This is exactly what we are discussing, that sometimes historians when they write, since I wrote a book, unfortunately, in the sense that it took me 2 years to study in National Archives and here in Nehru Memorial Museum Library. So I was told by some seniors that you have to write plenty, means 400 pages. Then it would be called a book. I said I'm writing for graduate and undergrads and IAS exam. And my publisher told to be brief because students do not write. So he told me to be precise within 200 pages. 200 pages, entire modern history. That was our task. So most historians would write in details because they do not want to leave anything. That is what their professionalism. But in IAS exam, as I told, you do not have to read too many books. You just have to read few textbook. And our job is to help you out. Now, suppose our teachers put together have read 100 books, all four of us, right? I'm sure more than that. You have to read 4-5 books. But that 100 books knowledge you would get in our lectures, in our talk, in our question answer. And that is what no replacement of this type of intellectual, what I would say, property. In fact, I still attend some of the seminars and workshop, and many things I learned from some senior professors, direct lectures as great as Romila Thapar to Bipan Chandra to Irfan Habib and to Sumit Sarkar lectures, because I had opportunity and attended some Indian History Congress also here in Delhi. And in that lectures, I heard something which I never read anywhere. Just giving you one example. It was 2007. Irfan Habib was talking in a memorial lecture in Jamia Millia, and the talk was role of religion. And he was totally against religion, that he declared himself as an atheist. And he said how religion has divided people. So what he said, just see this, I would have never learned had I not attended that class. He said in last 1500 years, Muslims have killed more Muslims than non-Muslims have killed Muslims. Right from Karbala till now. Are you getting or not? Just take it Afghan war. Just is Iran-Iraq war. Are you getting not? Just see in Pakistan, Bangladesh, who killed who? Muslims killed Muslims. But the same logic I would use, the Christians have killed more Christians, the non-Christians have killed Christians. He didn't say, but I got the clue. Because in World War, Germans and French were enemies, and both are Christian. All your nation state is based on huge bloods. All this 19th and 20th century is full of revolutions and crises. Russians killed Christians. Ukraine, Russian and Ukraine, both are Christians. Hindus killed more Hindus than non-Hindus killed Hindus. Upper caste versus lower caste. Language conflict. Now, this is from one lecture I could draw this conclusion that how religion is actually blamed. You are fighting for your other reason. And within your religion, you are killing more than non-religion people have killed your religious community. The second thing I learned, that is how beautiful concept. After his lecture, one gentleman became very angry. And he said, you says you are an atheist person, but you have a Muslim name called Irfan Habib. I was very curious to know what answer he would give. Then he came, he said, my name is not Islamic, it is an Arabic name. Now, this is very interesting. I heard long back, but now I confirmed from a top class historian, his name is not Islamic, it is Arabic name. We call it Hindu name, Muslim name. Let me check. You call it Mirignani, a Hindu girl or Muslim girl? Mirignani. Tell me honestly, हिंदू के लड़कियों के नाम होते हैं या मुसलमानों के? हिंदू. गजाला, हिंदू लड़कियों के नाम होते हैं मुसलमानों के? मुसलमानों के. दोनों का एक ही मतलब होता है, हिरन जैसी आंख. गजाला मतलब हिरन जैसी आंख, मृगनयनी मतलब हिरन जैसी आंख. वो एक संस्कृत में है, एक अरबिक में है, और आपने उसको हिंदू मुस्लिम कह दिया. सूरज, ठीक है, हिंदुओं के नाम होते हैं इंडिया में, अरबिक में उसे आफ्ताब कहते हैं. मेरे अंकल का नाम है आफ्ताब. आफ्ताब मतलब सूरज, और सूरज भी सूरज. ओके, हिंदी में चंद्र बोलते हैं. कितने मोहल्ले में लड़के का नाम होते हैं चंद्र? होते. मुसलमानों में महताब होता है. महताब मतलब चांद. तो महताब सुना आपको लगा मुसलमान है, चंद्र सुना आपको लगा हिंदू है. एक्चुअली वन इज पर्शियन, वन इज हिंदी. It's not religion, it's language. Now, this sense You won't get it with a book. You can get it in classes, in lectures. That's the 2 example I wanted to give, right? Yes, please.
So I have an academic question related to world history. So I read it was written in the yellow book why nationalism is called grave digger of dynasties. It was written nationalism is considered as grave digger of dynasties, and I was not able to understand.
Yeah, because the question your friend has asked, that why nationalism was called as the grave digger of dynasties. I'll give you many examples of it. For example, the Habsburg dynasty. So Austrian Empire was a multi-ethnic, multi-linguistic empire which broke up into a number of nation states. Ottoman Empire broke up into a number of nation states. Russian Empire also saw fragmentation in the West. So the idea of empire was based on, one, the paternalistic rights of the king to rule and no sense of accountability. Second, military might and their ability to control the masses through elaborate bureaucracy, taxation. But modern politics is based on the idea that every individual has a right to express their views, and when it expands to the community level, then communities rejected this type of setup and they came up with their own state formation. That is why it is the grave digger. So we'll discuss.
So isn't that
No, nationalism is both integrative and disintegrative. Nationalism has led to creation of states. Also, it has led to disintegration of states. Yugoslavia, the pan-Slavic state was integrated, but then we see disintegration. So nationalism is both integrative and disintegrative.
We will discuss in detail when we discuss Gandhi's nationalism versus Tagore, how they are different. And we will also discuss how recently, in the last 15, 20 years, nationalism has become a new religion. And elections in America is for what? Nationalism. America for American first. So America to Turkey to India to Pakistan, nationalism has emerged. And what Yuval Harari has recently said in plenty of interviews, that religion and nationalism are the 2 ideology which have killed human being maximum. And these are the 2 ideology which is so emotional that people are ready to die for it. In fact, these are the 2 only ideology according to them. मेरे हिसाब से एक तीसरी आइडियोलॉजी जो ये लोग भूल चुके थे कि लोग सिर्फ धर्म और नेशन के नाम पर ही मरने को तैयार नहीं है, उस लड़की और उस लड़का के नाम पर भी मरने को तैयार होते हैं. वो इंडियन सब कॉन्टिनेंट में नहीं आए हैं, यहाँ पे तो मरते नहीं मरते हैं, दोनों जोड़ी भाग गए और सुसाइड कर लिया, उसको नहीं लिखा उन्होंने, वो भी एक नई हिस्ट्री होगी. बट ideologically speaking, religion is no longer only dividing factor. Nationalism has become a huge dividing factor. So that, of course, his lecture and my lecture, because nationalism in Europe also very important, in Indian history also very important. Okay. Yash is asking a question about.
So I answered that. Yes, I'll be
Okay.
discussing about the crusades. So I think we have done, most of the questions have been asked.
Yeah.
The more you will prepare, more you will have doubts, and many more precise doubts will emerge during the course of the preparation. So welcome to history optional preparation. 2 of us are here. 2 other faculties are not present now. So they will also be guiding you, and we'll be starting our course from 7th of July, 5:30. See you there.
Okay,
Thank
wish
you.
you all the best.
Yes.
Yeah, please. Yeah, please. No.
We'll take care of
Luckily,
that.
we do not have the theorist here. We have some historiography, but as I told, maybe in my class and some other classes, you would get some touch of those school of history, which I just told in my own lecture, but not too much, because that is more in PG exam rather than here exam. Okay. Thank you very much. May
Thank
God
you.
bless you. Thank you.